Hey everybody, and happy autumn. In honor of the changing of the season, we wanted to share with you a forest preserve that's very dear to our hearts and has something to offer really any time of year. In the winter, it's almost a guaranteed place to see bald eagles. In the spring, summer, and fall, there's all kinds of migratory birds that we've never seen anywhere else, although one of our favorites are the osprey, which you can see other places as well, but one of the best views that we've ever seen. And this place also offers some of the most spectacular sunsets in the Chicago area, really any time of year. In addition, we recently found that it can easily connect up with a trail that borders possibly the most historic body of water in the Chicago area that really helped shape and seal Chicago's fate as a center of commerce and possibly shape the course of westward expansion in America. So we hope you'll enjoy this visit to Saganashkee Slough and the I&M Canal Trail.
Okay, so we like to start this trail from the Saganashkee Slough East lot that is on 104th. And the great thing about this is you get a view of these spectacular osprey. Look at these guys. These guys were actually completely endangered in Illinois and were actually absent, as far as we know, until the early 90s. They had been around until the middle of the 20th century, and then DDT and other things wiped them out. They are the most amazing fishers you'll ever see in the raptor world, and they're really magnanimous. They actually share their nests with other birds. They're amazing. Go see them. You'll fall in love with them. They're there in spring months from about April until maybe September, October, depending on the weather. So here we're just heading straight out of that lot, straight south and turning west. And you'll see this is a nice, easy ride of just between 3 and 4 miles until we get to the end of the preserve. Check out the migratory birds that you can see there. This is a female Baltimore oriole. We saw our first ever orchard oriole here, and there's tons of other amazing wildlife, including, as I said, if you venture out in the winter, you will have a view of these. Almost guaranteed. It is the place that we have seen bald eagles more than any place else. I almost can say that I could guarantee it. We've seen them in all ages. We've seen them mating. We've seen them flying. We've seen them getting harassed by other birds. We've seen them hunting. They're unbelievable. And we've also seen a lot of these guys.
Oh, look at this little guy.
Is he a brown snake? Is he a garter snake? He's a garter snake.
Ooh, he's pooping in my hand.
Well, so much for using this in the video.
He's pooping in my hand.
That is so cute. Look, he's smelling the air. Is he in focus?
He's smelling the poop.
Is he in focus?
I can't.
In addition, we've also seen a lot of amazing butterflies here, including some we've never seen anywhere else, like giant swallowtails. Picture a monarch, but like 3 times as big, and then of course a swallowtail. So you're going to be going along here by the Saganashkee Slough and the Cal-Sag Channel, and then you're going to be just taking a long, wide left turn into this parking lot at the end of that trail. And when you do, you're going to be coming out to the south, and you're going to be crossing something kind of scary. It's 83 and 171, both the same thing there. It's not a protected crossing. Please be very careful, but it's worth it because once you do that turn that was illustrated on the map in yellow, you're going to be going along 83 and 171, also called Kingery Highway, and it's going to take you to the coolest hidden trail along a body of water that I know in anywhere in the Palos area. So this was just crossing, again, you'll have to cross kind of back over the Cal-Sag Channel. That's what that big blue bridge was. And when you do, this is just literally about 1.5 miles from where we came out of the parking lot to where we're going to be getting onto this next trail. So after that big blue bridge, you're going to have one more crossing, but it is protected. This is Grant, much easier. You got lights, people will watch out for you. And almost as soon as you cross Grant, you're going to see where it looks like you should be able to finish that bike path and get to what's called the Centennial Trail, which we'll do a whole other video on. But instead, that was closed, as you could see. So we did a hairpin turn that you can see in red there, and it's actually really easy to see. This is going to take you around back under Kingery Highway and to the I&M Canal Trail. First of all, it feels really secret and kind of hidden, and there's not a lot of people along it. But this is probably the most important man-made body of water in Chicago's history because it links together the Atlantic watershed that feeds into the Great Lakes and into the Chicago River to the Mississippi watershed that goes down to the Gulf of Mexico, and that's via the Des Plaines in the Illinois going to the Mississippi. And the reason this is so important, right, is that this is what all the explorers that first came to this part of the continent were looking for. Of course, the indigenous folks knew that there was an easy portage here between the two watersheds for time immemorial, but it was something that really a lot of the early European settlers were looking to exploit for trade purposes. And so they had this idea to build a canal pretty much since they started exploring the area in the 1600s. And finally in the 1800s, 1830s, it was actually built. So it's amazing to sit there and picture as you're riding along the I&M Trail, which runs on both sides of the canal, so you can go down one way on the one side, on the north side, and come back on the south side, or vice versa. And when you're going along this trail, you're right next to the canal, and you're literally on the towpath that the mules would have been walking on 200 years ago as they were going alongside the barges and helping to tow those shipments between the two watersheds. So literally, this is what helped put Chicago, really what put Chicago on the map. It's what brought the railroads to Chicago and therefore industry to Chicago, and shaped Chicago's role in all of Western expansion. It's amazing to think about this as you're on this sleepy little trail. Even though the the I&M Canal is now kind of stagnant, you're going to see a ton of wildlife here. We're going to see a bunny cross the path here in a moment. There's tons of herons. There's 1 million migratory birds, maybe not quite 1 million, but a lot. And it's a much more alive than you would think a 200-year-old man-made, halfway filled in waterway would be. So it's a really exciting place to be, and kind of good place to think about sort of Chicago's history. If you've ever been to Bubbly Creek in the city, that's the beginning of the I&M Canal, and this is down at the other end, some 30 odd miles away. So to get back, we're not going to show you the entire return trip, but to get back, there's several different places that you can actually cross back over the canal and onto the other side, or the trail that runs on the other side, and then just retrace your steps. It'll all look kind of different. You'll have more chances to see wildlife. We actually found this really cool place to cross over. Now, if you keep going, you can actually get all the way to the Centennial Trail, which is another amazing complex of trails in the confluence of Will, DuPage, and Cook counties. But we actually found this really cool place to turn around just because you can see the sun was starting to set. This is actually an old railroad crossing going over the canal. And I really slowed down the video here so you get a good sense of how it looks and how overgrown it was. You can really picture how this brought together the two modes of transportation that made Chicago the hub of commerce and transportation between the eastern markets and the western suppliers of cattle and hogs and all kinds of other raw goods back in the earliest days of Chicago's history. So we crossed over on this railroad crossing, and you can just feel the history just emanating from that pathway and from the towpaths for the canal that you're crossing on either side. This place is just so steeped in memory and so steeped in history. And you can just picture all the other hundreds and thousands of feet that have crossed there before you. So we just turned around and went back. We'd only gone maybe about a mile down this path because we could see that it was getting towards sunset, and you do have to have your car out of the lot by around sunset or they can actually ticket you. So we hope that you've enjoyed this introduction to one of our favorite, very easy to ride, but also very deeply historic and profoundly moving pathways out in the Palos system. We hope you enjoyed as much as we do. Thanks so much for coming along on this virtual ride.